All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Overland Trail Guides podcast. My name is Ben. I will be your host. This is episode 27. We're going to be talking about the Wild Rivers Discovery Trail in Oregon today. And for today's guest, we have Christian Fick. I'll turn it over to you in a minute, Christian, here. But before we get into that, just want to tell everybody a little bit about Overland Trail Guides. So Overland Trail Guides features North America's largest directory of curated overland routes. I think we have right around 100 routes right now. Most detailed GPX files in the market. And we're always doing events as well, too. We have one coming up later this month up in far northern California, Mount Shasta. I think we are hitting the Eastern Sierra next month. And then probably going to do something big out in the Great Basin, trying to figure out what, but maybe 1,500 miles or so in the month of October. Best way to support us, hit the website, subscribe. We also have a YouTube channel. Check that out as well. Lots of awesome videos. But today, like I said, we are talking about the Wild Rivers Discovery Channel. And we have actually one of our former employees here, Christian Fick. Well, welcome to the show, man. It's been a while.
It has. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about the route. I was pretty stoked. I got to run it pretty much in full completion, minus one or two pieces there, but
all good. That's usually how it goes, and that's what I did last summer when I did it too. Didn't get a chance to do the last section out to Port Orford, but tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What are you doing these days? And what are you full sending out in the trails these days too?
Yeah, originally from East Bay, California, a town called Orinda, kind of by Walnut Creek / Berkeley, for those not familiar with that very tiny postage stamp. Right now, I'm living up in Washington, out in town called Renton. It's basically an outskirt on Seattle. I work for Mule Expedition Outfitters in sales, so I basically get to help people build out their 4x4s and do whatever they really want to do. Bumpers, winches, suspensions, tents, electrical, kind of all that fun, expensive stuff that we love. Right now, I'm in an '07 4Runner SR5 V6. All the fun overland stuff done, dual battery, winch bumper, 34s, suspension, tire carrier drawer system.
So what I'm hearing is that all that money that should be going into your savings account that you're getting at cost is going onto your truck these days, huh?
That's basically what occurs. Anything not there is eaten up by snowboarding and motorcycles, because I generally hate money. So that's the life I try to pretend I can afford.
Well, hey, you only live once, so you may as well enjoy it, right? So
It's basically
and you work at Mule.
yes.
How's that going?
Pretty good, man. We're busy. We're booked out for the next month and a half. A lot of stuff rolling through the shops, through the shop. I mean, it's generally it's a good time. Get to help people mod their trucks, and I'd say most days it goes pretty well. So
Cool. So we are talking about the Wild Rivers Discovery Trail. I'll give everybody a little bit of background on this, and we'll talk about Christian's experience out on the trail. It's a little over 200 miles. It is in southwestern Oregon, essentially on the western half of the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. The reason it's called the Wild Rivers Discovery Trail is because while that area is called the Wild Rivers Coast, there is a super high concentration of wild and scenic rivers out along that section of the coast. You have like the Chetco, the Illinois, the Rogue, Pistol, Elk, Sixes, probably the Coquille. I may have forgotten something, but I think that is most of them. And it's a pretty mellow route for the most part. Subaru or Sprinter can handle most of it. The northern section, you definitely get into the rainforest up there, and you might encounter some lower hanging branches, which could be a little bit difficult for those tall roof Sprinters. But if you're like me, you're just going to push on through and see what happens. And of course, you can get the route over at overlandtrailguides.com, complete route guide, along with the GPX file. But let's talk about your time out on the trail. So you did this track when, Christian?
it was over the 4th of July weekend. Plus
okay. All right, 4th of July weekend, hitting some of those busy river bars down there. I bet you encountered quite the party down there, huh?
Yeah. We ran it from north to south.
Okay.
So we started in Port Orford. Um, that was pretty. I would say not desolate, but there wasn't really that many people because that's not the portion of the route that has, or at least the northern portion doesn't really have much in the way of rivers. But yeah, I mean, your comments on the pinstriping and all that is definitely accurate. A few for a good number of miles, me and my buddy felt like we were, maybe the first ones down some of those roads this season. And yeah, if you're sensitive about your pain, it's not where you'd want to take your vehicle.
Hold on. Stop there. If you're sensitive about your paint, you need to pick a new hobby. I'm going to
Yes,
say that again. If you are sensitive
I'm
about your
trying to
paint,
be nice.
hey, you got to be German and tell it like it is, right? Just be blunt and say it. It's like, I want to go mountain biking, but I don't want to crash. Well, pick a different sport. I'm sorry.
Or take up
It's just,
drinking. Just kidding.
let's take up hiking. There you go. Yeah.
I said drinking, but same difference.
Oh,
Um,
you could drink while you hike. You might
yep,
fall.
yep, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was fun starting in Port Orford. Definitely, want to top off on gas there. Because coming from any other direction, you're going to need to. Then we worked our
Well,
way.
that is if you have a little Toyota and a 20-gallon tank and not a Ram with a 52-gallon of
Oh
diesel.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
actually working with less capacity than the normal because I have a sizable dent in my fuel tank the from the Rubicon.
Of
So
course you do.
I estimate that I'm approximately 3 gallons less in capacity than I
Oh my
used to be.
gosh. All right. Well, you let me know when you want that 4th gen off of your hands. I'm still shopping around. Um, so I did the Wild Rivers track the previous summer, and then we linked some other stuff in southwestern Oregon on the other side of the Siskiyou Crest, and then Smith River across the California border there. I didn't get to do that last section from I think it's the South Fork of the Coquille River. I hope I'm saying that right, out to Port Orford. But I remember when we got into that section, it really kind of changes like the forest. You kind of get out of the burn areas and stuff like that. And the forest gets really thick. There's a lot of the old man's beard moss hanging from the trees and just has that real Pacific Northwest vibe going on, like you're in just a dark and dank and wet rainforest. Is that kind of what it was like going through that first section of Port Orford and kind of tighter trails and everything?
Yeah, super green. Lot of ferns and bushes and whatnot that have grown into the road and on the sides. And yeah, as you're saying, like you're not in a burn area for quite some time in that particular spot. Once you start working your way out, it starts to get a good bit dustier going down the roads. Me and my buddy had to space out a bit so he could see where he was driving behind me. And yeah, you kind of drop up and over a bunch of mountain ridges and passes, that kind of thing, but very green. Yeah, very rainforest type scenery the whole way through.
The funny thing about Oregon, if you pay attention to any of the YouTubers out there, and for whatever reason, it seems like Oregon has a lot of them too. Kind of some of the early ones as well. They're not out along the coast as much just because that's a lot what you get out there, right? You're kind of in the forest, and it's like, how interesting is this going to be if I'm doing 5 days of driving and then I'm just looking at Douglas firs and spruces or whatever else I'm looking at? But that's what I think is really cool about this route is the vast majority of it is actually not like that. There's a lot as you kind of work your way south, or if you go from north to south, uh, a good 2/3 of it, maybe more, maybe 3/4 of it, you have plenty of views on it.
Yeah, you come up and over like a number of something between hills and mountains, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, you get repeated pretty awesome, sun or not sunrise, just mountain kind of views from the top. It's a lot of dropping up and down, and it's pretty sweet. You can tell it is not a frequently tracked route. There's no real trash. There's a lot of, you can just tell, like, there's not a lot of tires going down and crushing things down. And yeah, it's out there. You really
You
do
you
actually feel like
you brought up another sore point, and I'm sure some people are going to gripe about this. But my experience going to Oregon, and I don't know what it is I've never encountered so much trash in the backcountry. Not just in random places, but a dispersed camping site. And it just seems like I don't know. Did you have that experience when you were out there? I mean, that was just kind of my experience in a lot of different places in Oregon. It was a bit sad. I know people like to trash California, and maybe it was just an anomaly. But for whatever reason, when I'm out and about, I feel like there's just a lot of trash at the dispersed campsites up there. And I don't know if it's because there's unfortunately, a lot of people that are living in the forest and stuff like that. But I'd be curious, what was your kind of experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you got to any of the spots that were more desirable, like, the ones that were kind of like random, just like pull offs and clearings in the forest, like on the up, not near the water. Those were fine,
Oh,
rock
good. That's great to hear.
for the most part. I mean, we found a few spots that had like leftover trash and all that, but generally all right. The more problematic ones were like, even when we were a lot further, kind of into the middle of nowhere, any spot that had decent or even, not even that good river access had
Yeah.
pretty stacked amounts of trash.
Yeah. It's a
You
shame.
know, yeah, it was just, a lot your standard kind of backcountry special, a lot of bush lattes, shotgun shells, 45 case.
Bushlight. Yep.
Um,
Plastic bottles,
yeah,
beer cans,
yeah, I
and
found,
yeah.
a fair amount of stuff, that gets like just left in like the middle of like a fire pit as
Yeah.
some form of yeah, I don't know, like,
It's there for us to clean up, I guess. But I don't want to focus on the negative stuff too
yeah.
much here. I do want to ask, where did you end up camping your first night on the trail?
Let me zoom in here. I have my guy up just so I can quote myself. So we originally were gunning for a river site on the sixes, but we ended up running further south of the marked sixes point on
Okay.
the map, and we ended up turning off. Let's see here. We ended up turning off on the Forest Service road that's before Rusty Creek, and we went up the mountain a bit. And
Okay.
we found a pretty flat, clearing up there, and set up for the first night because we were running trail, or not trail, but we were running a distance that day. Me and my buddy had linked up in God, trying to remember. We linked up out by like not Grants Pass, but like up by Eugene, and then basically drove all the way down to Port Orford. So by the time we got to the campsite, we'd been running it for probably 7-8 hours that day.
Ah, there you go. And what was that situation like along the sixes? I know that's definitely a smaller river compared to like the Chetco and the Illinois and the Rogue and everything like that. But is there camping along that section of the track there?
Yeah, there's camping. There was less people out by that, but given that it was the 4th of July weekend, I talked to one dude camped, right at the junction, and he basically told me every site that they had seen on the way in was taken. It
Wow.
wasn't as bad as like, the the on the
The Chetco.
Chetco, when we got
That's
past
just a party scene over there.
exactly. It wasn't nearly like that, but
Yep.
instead of trying to find something on the river, we just, that day we were so beat that we just went up the mountain because we knew that no one would be up there when it was that hot.
Oh, so that's right. You went out there and it was pretty darn cooking when you were out there, huh?
Yeah, we only got it real bad like 2 days. I mean, at the hottest, my car was reading, I think, 109 or 108, and that was
Oh my God.
approaching the Chetco.
Holy cow, that is absolutely bonkers. That's right. That must have been that heat wave that we had
Yeah.
back in July. Yeah,
On the
that is
upside, it made it really easy to jump into every single river that we stopped.
hell yeah, definitely. That is crazy. So you camped up the mountain night one, and then who were you out on the trail with?
My buddy Seven, he's got a built second gen Tacoma with the Kings and all that fun stuff done to it.
Nice, nice. So just the two of you, two boys hitting the back country and just tearing up the trails and checking out what's out there. So you camp a little bit beyond the sixes, and so you head out on day two, and you're still this section of the track. You're still in the rainforest, essentially, right? Kind of the thick forest out that way.
Yeah, it's like that all the way. I would say, yeah, pretty much all the way until you hit the Coquille River, if I'm
Yep.
pronouncing that right. I'm just looking at my maps here, but we
We
ran.
have a local here from Grants Pass, Mr. Raptor Pack Adventures. Are we saying that right? You can keep going. I'm just curious if we're saying that right. Keep going, Christian.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, we ran that all the way until we got to the Coquille. And then we stopped in like Powers to get some gas.
That's
And
right.
um, yeah, word to the wise. I mean, Powers is like a cool little town for sure. And they've got cold beer. But the gas is $6.50 to $7 a gallon in Powers. So if you can bring extra fuel that doesn't cost $7 a gallon, I recommend it.
Woo! So you probably got what, 5 gallons there?
Uh, yeah, I actually no, more like 7 to 8 gallons. We burned up a bit, hauling it in from Port Orford and cruising at a pretty decent amount of speed through the woods there.
Nice. And so you get down to the Coquille. Did you get to hit any of the? Oh, I'm disappearing there. Did you get to hit any of the discovery points? Like one of the things that I wish I would have done there, but the person that I was out with, he didn't want to do it, was do the little hike down to, I think it's Coquille Falls that's out there.
Unfortunately, I did miss that. I did miss that one. We stopped at like a few of the viewpoints and one of the what was it? One of the I think it was a waterfall trailhead out by the South Fork.
Yep.
Yeah, we stopped at that, which was really epic. But yeah, generally we kind of just stopped and swam, and then when we weren't swimming, we were driving for the most part. We didn't get as many days on trail as I was kind of hoping for. Just time constraints between the two of us, but we did the whole thing in three days, not including waking up and leaving on the fourth.
And that's definitely doable because like there are probably the southern 2/3, from what I recall, is mostly pretty wide dirt roads that I would qualify as soft roading for the most part. And
Yeah,
it's pretty easy to make over 100 miles in a day if you wanted to, you
yeah,
know?
I would agree with that. Yeah, we were keeping a good rate of speed. I don't know, 20, 25 at least. And the only thing that really added time on either day was we did hit two different washouts that were, completely impassable, even practically by foot. So we had to, backtrack and add a couple of miles going and basically hitting a circumvent route. But apart from that, it was easy going.
It's funny about that. I remember you were telling me about that and you showed me the one picture of one of the washouts and I was like, hey, I remember that one from the year before that was starting to give way. And I sent you the picture and we're like, yep, that's the one. The road is now gone. But hey, that's part of the adventure. We definitely try to keep that updated on the track. But that's just how it goes sometimes, especially out in the Pacific Northwest where you're getting 100+ inches of rain every year and on some of these trails.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
What was the river that you went swimming on that first day or the second day that you were out?
The first time we swam was the South Fork of the Coquille.
Oh, you did? Where did you swim at? Because where we were at, it was more like a big creek, kind of rolling through, and it didn't seem like it was too deep, but I'm sure there were some swimming holes around there.
Yeah, it was like right at like the bridge that crosses you over towards Powers. Um,
Okay.
I think you have to cross it anywho to I'm just bringing up here my
Well,
I'm
there's
just bringing,
Powers.
yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Oh
marked
yeah, yeah.
as,
It definitely looks a little bit bigger down there for sure. Oh, I remember this. I remember this area.
yeah, it's right by China Flat. That's right where we swam at was crossing over to China Flat.
Yeah. It's funny. I went down there and we were eyeing that area to camp in, and there was I got some bad vibes from this guy that was over there. So we ended up camping at a developed campground down the way. That was actually, I think we were like one of two people in the campground, because it was middle of the week and it was raining it was raining in late June up there, which I guess isn't uncommon. So
Gotcha. Okay. Yep.
yeah.
But yeah, nice. Yeah, that's a nice little swimming hole. Definitely deep enough to jump in. I mean, if you were really sendy, you might even be able to jump off the bridge in, because it did look pretty deep in the center. But I'm not that guy, pal. But yeah, that was our first swim spot. So we stopped there for a couple hours, and then hit up the restock in Powers for fuel and some more food and beer.
Food and beer, the essentials, and gas.
Yeah. And then I'm just looking here, but yeah, from there, I think we actually ran. I'm just looking at my maps here, but I believe we actually ran all the way from there to, down all the way to the Rogue. And we checked out the Rogue, but you can't. There's not really anywhere to camp on the Rogue in that portion. It's all, well, technically there is a developed campground slightly up like north on the river, but we ended up splitting down by the marked, let's see, what is it called? The Cougar Lane Lodge, like that one gas station down south of the Rogue, um, down by
Where's that? Oh, down by Agnes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of, is that where the Illinois
Yeah.
comes into the Rogue? That's
Yeah.
beautiful
So
out there, isn't
we
it?
it is. There is a bit of a burn scar in
From
that
last,
area,
yeah, from last summer, right?
but still not bad at all, honestly. We turned at Agnes and we went. We drove down the Illinois until we hit what is it?
Is it Oak Flat?
Oak Flat. Yeah, Oak
Yep.
Flat.
That was actually the name of the fire too. That's where it started over there. I think somebody was camping
Yeah.
and that's what it was from, actually, unfortunately.
Yeah, so we drove down to Oak Flat, and yeah, that's dispersed camping. So we went down and just pretty much drove to the end of the bar and set up with tents and awning and everything, and then spent the entire day swimming. Because
Nice.
it was north of 95 degrees the whole day.
Woo. So I think the picture I have back here is also from, I think that's the Oak Flat area, if I recall.
I'm quite
On that
sure
river
that
bar.
I'm quite sure that
Yeah.
it is because I have a picture of that.
Except as you can see, it was totally different weather. It was like 65 out and breezy when we were there. So it wasn't exactly like, oh, I want to go jump in the river, if you know what I mean. It was a
Yeah.
little bit cool.
Yep. No, that's fair. Yeah, no, it's pretty chill little site. Handful of other people were there, but the most of them left by sundown.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, had pretty much the whole river bar to ourselves. The only mistake I made that day is not opening my tent until the nighttime, because I trapped all of the 100-degree weather inside of the tent. So my tent was a sauna until about 1 in the morning.
Oh, man.
That one,
Woo. Did you camp out on the river bar, or did you camp in one of the dispersed sites that's kind of out on the dirt and stuff like that?
We were up more into the dirt by like where there was still some trees. We could have gone straight onto the bar, but yeah, I mean having
It's
the
super
extra.
rocky like this, right? Like you can see behind me, it's just like bowling balls everywhere. It wouldn't be, especially if you're drinking and walking around at night, you twist an ankle pretty easy out there, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly that, and yeah, not a whole lot of interest in dealing with all that. Plus, my buddy that was out there with me, Seven, his girlfriend was along with us, so it was closer walk to the bathrooms up by the trees. So
Mm,
that played a bit of a role in the decision.
well, I know how that goes for sure. So happy wife, happy life. Even if it's not a wife, you got to keep her happy. That's for sure. Yeah, that must have been really nice camping out there. And definitely, it sounds like there wasn't too many people out there, even on the holiday weekend, huh?
No, not really.
Wow.
Down on the Rogue, there was a lot of people who had, launched boats out that way because the parking lot for like that northern like launch area was pretty full. But
Yeah,
no, the Illinois was there's just day groups, and by sundown it was effectively empty.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And I bet it was a busy weekend with all everybody shooting down the rogue and everything too, as well, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right. Well, you're on day 3 and you still got a lot of ground to cover out there. Did you burn the rest of that trail that final day on day 3? Like I know that section from Agnes for the most part is pretty easy going as you go south. There's a couple of sections there that would be a little slower going from what I recall, but
Yeah,
once I
we
recall you hit Wild Horse Lookout, it's kind of just smooth sailing.
Yeah, it was decently decently high speed or not paved roads, just graded dirt roads.
Yep.
We did hit the lookout. One heads up there is both of the marked lookouts, Wild Horse, and I think it's what's the other one?
There's Snow Camp.
The Snow Camp. Yeah, both of
Yep.
them. Both of them are technically rentals through the summer. And they're supposed to be gated. But Wild Horse, when we went, it was only dummy locked, so we opened it up and drove up. There was no one there, so we
Yeah.
got some pictures, and then
Oh,
dummy
cool.
dummy locked the gate behind us. But yeah, if you had to walk up it, it would be a nice steep uphill. But it
Yeah,
was,
I'm looking at it right now. It's definitely steep. I think we did the same thing on that one as well, and we went to check it out, and there was somebody there. They were cool, and they let us snap a couple of photos, and then we let them be. But yeah, I think one or two of them, like you said, you can rent out for sure, which is pretty cool. You just hit recreation.gov, and it's under the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest for those of you out there that want to check it out. Obviously, everybody and their mom is camping these days, so these fire lookouts are in super high demand. So if you want to do that, you gotta plan like 6 months in advance.
Yep. And Wild Horse, like the road up there, nothing insane, but definitely had to put it in 4-wheel drive to get up there.
Yep,
So
absolutely. And then what I love about this kind of next section of the trail is there's there's been logging there. There's been some larger fires, unfortunately, but the fires have actually kind of cleared things out. So you have some nice views. You can see the Kalmiopsis wilderness to your east, where you see those red rocks and the mountains and everything like that, which creates a really kind of almost like Martian landscape.
yeah, no, that's a fact. Going past Wild Horse, yeah, there is obvious, burn scar and everything else, like you're saying, but yeah, you can actually see the view, over the mountains, which is definitely a nice change up because you do spend a good bit of the route kind of like glancing out at trees, and you're like, oh man, like the view's probably pretty sick, but there's no way in hell you're going to be able to like see a horizon view without
Yep.
climbing 100 feet up a tree. So that part was sick too, for sure.
Did you, I think it was this section of trail. I remember there was a stretch. I'm pretty sure it was that section that was just rhododendrons for like 10 miles. If you looked out your window, maybe the heat wave killed them off, but when we went through there was just like pink flowers everywhere. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, there wasn't that. There was, I mean, along the route there was some rhododendrons that were pretty nice, but not like a sustained 10-mile stretch. Probably too hot
Well,
for that.
we did it that year that we got that crazy amount of snowfall the previous winter, and I know Southern Oregon got some of that too. So maybe that's why the blooming season was longer. But I don't know if you noticed this. Did you ever get out of your vehicle and notice any kind of like shrubs that are around shin high with pink flowers on them?
I feel like that rings a bell. I'm not gonna lie, I can't place like a defined instance, but I feel
Yep.
like it does.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because to the east there's the Kalmiopsis wilderness, and it's named after the Kalmiopsis shrub, and it's an endemic plant that only lives kind of on that border region of California and Oregon, whereas there's a bunch of serpentine soil, and you're probably familiar with like the California pitcher plant,
Yeah.
the carnivorous plant.
Yep.
You have a bunch of plants and other things up there that aren't found anywhere else in the world because there's this really unique geology as well as ecology where you have the Pacific, you have the Cascades, you have the coastal ranges, and you have the Great Basin all coming together. And you have this region in the Klamath Mountains. It's called the Klamath Siskiyou. And I think it has the second largest concentration of conifer species in the world. It has 36 different species of conifer. I think there might be one place in Russia that might have more, but as far as like the Western Hemisphere goes, it's super diverse, at least as far as conifer forests go, and has all kinds of rad plants and stuff too.
Yeah, I joked with my buddy actually multiple times on the route. I was like, this feels like we're going through Jurassic Park in a few areas. Feels vastly different than even, yeah, like most of the forests you'd hit in Washington or
Totally.
a lot of California. Obviously the North Coast is a different thing, but the Sierras and everything else they don't have anything that diverse in comparison.
Yeah, you got all these different zones up there. It's pretty crazy. Sometimes I wonder what it was like before, like pre-European contact, when you just had massive trees everywhere out there.
Oh yeah, yep. Now the history is pretty diverse. Growing or not growing up, but going to college in Humboldt. With the old growth redwoods, and they show off like what the center cuts look like is pretty insane.
Absolutely. So you're kind of leaving the rainforest behind. You're heading south. Um, you visited a couple of the lookouts. Was there anything else that kind of caught your eye or that really stood out for you as you were traversing on your third day?
Um, Honestly, it was all pretty spectacular. We did come across like I'm trying to see where it was. There was like a pretty sweet mountain pass that made for some pretty crazy photos. I'm trying to see if I can pull the name of it real quick. It was let's see. Oh yeah, Devil's Half Acre. That offered a pretty spectacular view. You got some good altitude compared to the surrounding areas. So that was fun.
Where's that by?
Oh, whoops. That was my bad. I got mixed up. That was slightly before Agnes. So that was
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
there's some
Um,
beautiful spots out there.
Yeah, from there we ended up ripping all the way. The only lookout we missed was the Quail Prairie lookout, because we actually kind of snipped that portion of the route, and just went, instead of going up and around, we just kind of hit that little crossover, just because we were trying to make up a couple miles.
Yep. And so that puts you down into the Chetco.
Yep. Yeah, so we pretty much from there we dropped straight onto the Chetco. I'm not going to name exactly where, but we did find a spot that we got legal permission to cross the river.
By the ranger, right?
By the
So let's
ranger.
just clarify that.
Yeah, it was checked with the ranger, and then also checked with some additional USFS staff that were out there working to make sure people weren't setting off fireworks over the 4th. But yeah, we got 2 different green lights. So we actually crossed over the Chetco and camped on a bar out there, which was pretty epic. Kind of had like
Because
a
the Chetco gets busy, right? Like you go down to Redwood Bar. We made the
yeah.
unfortunate choice of camping. I was like, oh, there's a nice swimming hole. And there was another one further upstream that had a lot less people, but the swimming hole wasn't as nice. And I wish I would have stayed there because our neighbors were playing dubstep till like 1 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah, it was interesting because there was a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Not far from where we ended up camping, but they were actually shockingly pretty quiet, at least from us not being able to hear ACDC or gunshots. But yeah, there was the Chetco is popular. It's not far from Brookings. So
It's
you
not far from Grants Pass. I get the feeling that just a lot of people in Southern Oregon, that's where they head to.
It's well known. It's very well known. So yeah, but to the credit of the river, there's a reason why people go. Water was pretty clear, and yeah, it's beautiful and great for swimming when it's 102 degrees outside.
Whew. It was 102 that close to the ocean.
When my car was reading 108, that was like less than a half hour out from the Chetco.
Jeez. Yeah, that's
When we
crazy.
dropped down like onto the bars, I think it was somewhere between, I don't know, 95 and 102.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's insane. That's just bonkers. Whew, I'm glad we don't have that heat right now, for sure. But you bring up something interesting, and I know there's more and more new people kind of getting into this stuff. But like, if there is not a designated route or trail going across a creek or a river, guess what? You should stay out of it, right? But obviously, you asked U.S. Forest personnel.
Yeah.
You got permission. They said it's cool. That's a different story. But I'm just letting the other folks out there, maybe that haven't been doing this for 5, 10 years. Typically, they don't want us going through water. They're thinking about sensitive fishery, especially out on these coastal waterways where you have steelhead and salmon and stuff like that, where the fisheries aren't super healthy and their numbers have dropped drastically in the last 50 years.
Yeah, generally you will have problems if you get I won't say get caught. You just shouldn't. Yeah, you shouldn't do things that are not marked trails. I think the one part there that does differ is at least in California and I believe in Oregon. There are trails with marked crossings like
yeah, that's what I mean. If you're on the National Forest map has, what is it, the motor vehicle use map, the MVUM. If that crosses it, that's a different story, obviously.
Yeah, I know here in like Washington, I don't think there are legal crossings at all.
Really?
Yeah, you're not. From what I know, I could be wrong, but you're not supposed to cross. You're not supposed to cross water. At least not like a body of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, knowing where you're going and following like marked trails and everything is quite important. Because that's one, it's a bad thing to do, and 2, it's a huge ticket to get caught with an illegal crossing or off-roading somewhere that's prohibited. Which I would not be doing that.
So you got a nice little river bar. Did you kind of have it to yourself when you were
100%. There was no one else out there. Few of the other people from the nearby groups watched us cross, but nobody followed, which is what we were hoping for.
There you go. It's funny. I remember the first place that we looked at that was upstream from the Redwood Bar and that we didn't end up staying at, it was pretty shallow there. And I kind of remember that it looked like you could cross over. And I wonder if that's where you ended up, but we won't divulge too much information, because guess what? If you want to camp there, you got to find somebody that works for the Forest Service and get permission.
Yeah, generally good idea. With especially the Chetco River is not exactly a 5-inch wide stream of water or a smaller creek in the middle of nowhere. It's a pretty sizable body of water, and if the water had been faster or deeper, that would have been a bad plan.
But you got a nice camp.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you went swimming in the river that evening, given the temperatures, right?
Yes. After a number of late night beverages, we did return into the water at somewhere around the 1 a.m. mark.
Oh my gosh. So you were the ones that were up till 1 a.m. along the river this evening, huh?
We were not disturbing the rest of the people nearby with any music, but we were there's a few drinks consumed, and we ended up get back in the water around 1.
Nice. It was probably still nice outside, I imagine, too, right?
Yeah, it was still, I mean, it was probably in the mid 70s, give or take. So definitely still swimmable.
Nice. And so once you hit the Chetco, there's really not much more to get down to almost to the California border, because it pops out. Where do we pop out at? What's the town right there? Brookings, right?
Yeah, you pretty much
kind of the first one, even though. Yeah, and it popped out on the Windchuck.
We ended up trimming that last chunk off. When we were on the Chetco, we went straight into Brookings from there, because that particular day I couldn't afford to run much further south, because I had to drive back towards Seattle. So we ended up shooting to Brookings, got brunch there, and then my buddy, he went south back to California. I booked it all the way up the 101 to all the way up to Aberdeen and Washington from there.
Oh, wow. So was that your first time? I know you went to school down in Humboldt State, which really isn't that far away when you think about it, but was that your first time exploring that portion of the Oregon coast?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, when I lived in NorCal, Humboldt, we made a trip like into Gold's Beach, and then or Gold Beach, and then did that like 2 or 3 times. But apart from that, nothing further up the 101 from there. Most of my Oregon trips during college were to Ashland for snowboarding.
Ah, there you go. Good old Ashland. Cool. Anything else that you want to throw in about your experience on the Wild Rivers Discovery Trail?
It's a pretty good one. I mean, the views, the rate at which you can complete it, it's all in line for like, a great like longer weekend trip. Like again, 3 days didn't really feel too rushed. I wish I would have had more like 5 to hit more of like the discovery points and do some more like light hiking along the way. But overall, yeah, it's a sweet one. And if I had even more time, I would have absolutely connected it down to down to like Sourdough Camp, and gone, into Northern California to complete that portion of the Steelhead.
Yeah, so you brought that up. That's what we did last summer. We did the Wild Rivers Discovery Trail, about almost 200 miles of it. Then we cut across the Rogue River Canyon, and then went over the Siskiyou Crest. And before we hit Wild Rivers, we actually came up from California, and we did I think like 60, 70 miles of the Steelhead Adventure Route. We stayed at Sourdough Camp, which is definitely one of my favorite campgrounds up in that part of the state on the North Fork of the Smith. Absolutely beautiful up there. But you can do we spent, I think 9 days on the trail, right?
Oh
Is
yeah,
what we ended up.
I mean,
You could spend 2 weeks out there connecting all of those and doing like 600 miles of off-roading. There's
oh
so much
easy,
stuff to see
yeah.
out there.
No, you could really, yeah, you could really spend quite a bit of time combining those two routes. It's if I had more PTO that I didn't burn up on many different trips already, I probably would have done that. So
Yeah, well, that Siskiyou Crest, man, that is a really rad one. But that campsite that you recommended I go to, on my way going down to Illinois, that was the rock that forced me to get a new axle last month.
sounds like a skill issue. Just kidding.
It was a very deceptive rock, but it brought my 5-ton truck.
You're talking about the spot I gave you that's out off. Yeah, okay. I remember
Yeah,
the spot. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so we kept trucking along to Illinois, and there was this rock sticking out of the side of the trail. And I was like, I could get around that. Nope. Just came to a dead stop, and cost me a new axle is what it eventually ended up happening. And I managed for 11 months, and then I damaged the axle further. And so I finally got a new to me axle shipped from Texas from a salvage truck. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, there's that spot I sent you and like that little chunk of route that way. I could see there being some more technical stuff the
It
further you.
wasn't technical. It was a rock sticking outside of the trail on a narrow piece, and I thought I could get around it, and
Ah,
I didn't. I didn't. I did on the second attempt, but not the first one.
yeah,
And
that's fair.
my buddy, who's a good driver too, he saw me run into it. He ran into it too, but at a much lower rate of speed. It was just like kind of an optical illusion. It didn't look like you're going to hit it, but gotcha. But Wild Rivers Discovery Trail sounds like you had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's sweet too because you know like when you exit into Brookings, like running 101 north from there all the way to Washington is it's I guess technically sort of not really a part of the route, quote unquote, but it's that's a really impressive stretch of road all the way up. Getting past like Tillamook and stopping at a bunch of the drivable beaches along the way up is
yeah.
it's
I
a hell
bet
of
you
a
wish
road.
you had a few days to stretch that out, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I ended up catching, I got a hotel in Tillamook just to split it up, and I had 4 or 5 hours from I think from Brookings up to Tillamook, and then woke up the next day and had 4 or 5 more to go, give or take, to get back home.
That's the way to do it. Sometimes driving 10 hours after,
Yeah,
overlanding sucks. Sometimes I've done it, but it's not the most fun thing to do, especially on a beautiful stretch of coast there. So for somebody thinking about doing the Wild Rivers Trail, what would be your pitch to them of why they should check this out?
I mean, it's just like a classic story in the Pacific Northwest. You won't find a chunk of a route quite like it. Even the Steelhead route is vastly different than this one, and it's only a few miles to the south.
Yeah.
And it only changes more as you go up. Like from Port Orford up, you start to get into more of obviously northern Oregon, southern Washington type coastline, and it changes pretty dramatically. Until you get to the all the way to the Olympics, you don't get nearly as much as much mountains and whatnot that are going to be that close to the shoreline that are drivable. And it's trick like you're not going to come across that many rivers once you leave the area. That's kind of a dumb but also common sense comment to make, but yeah, once you're out of that region, there's really not like 6, 7, 8, whatever rivers that you can cross through. It's like, once you get north of that, it's more just the coast and the mountains, and then you get all the way up to the Olympics on the 101, and there's some lakes and everything like that, but there's only one or two rivers up that way that run all the way out.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And then, I think the other thing you mentioned was that you were out there on the 4th of July weekend. Obviously, a lot of people out there, if you can hit the Chetco or something like that during the week, it'll be a, totally different scene out there, because some of those river bars, like the Redwood Bar, I know the biggest one out there. They definitely get filled up with people. But there are some more obscure ones out there too that seem to have less people even on the weekends. So definitely poke around and see what's out there. But yeah, like you said, lots of views, lots of rivers, especially when it's 100 degrees outside, lots of opportunities to jump in the rivers and cool down too.
Yeah, no, it's a summer route to the nines. Like, the most people want to be on the water during the summer for obvious reasons. Nobody
Yep,
likes to sit under a tree when it's 95 degrees and wait for the sun to go down. So it's definitely one for now, right now. A month ago now, the next month, but after that, you wouldn't find me probably ripping through in September, because I'm not gonna try and swim when it's 50 degrees outside.
yeah, for sure. And I'm
Well,
not sure how much water is rolling through some of those places that time of year either.
yeah,
At least on like the Chetco.
yeah, no, that was, the Checo's definitely, even with the people, it's one of my favorite spots for sure. Just because it's big enough, it's deep enough, and jumping in is just a blast. But yeah, I would love to have the time to go back to that region and spend some more time doing it. But definitely recommend it. And yeah, as you were saying, it's accessible. It's accessible to a lot of vehicles. Definitely could get any manner of Subaru and everything else down there and through the whole thing. And yeah, as long as you got enough gas, got to carry, I'd say, between the gas tank and auxiliary. If you didn't want to refuel anywhere along the route, bring in at least 270 miles worth of fuel, and expecting to burn 220, 230 worth of it between elevation changes and obviously wanting to hit offshoots and everything.
For sure. I think that's some great advice. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. We
Yeah.
might have to have you back on to talk about one of your other adventures, because I know you're out and about a lot these days exploring your new home of the Pacific Northwest up in the Seattle area. But I did want to thank you for coming on the show, Christian. It's been great having you.
Yeah.
And we will catch everybody next time. So Godspeed and happy trails. And that is it, guys.
Yeah. It's a pleasure. Thanks again.
All right.